Affection is one of the most powerful human languages, I think. A hug, a hand on the shoulder, a smile at just the right moment. I think these gestures communicate care in ways that words sometimes really can't. Affection can disarm fear. It can soothe anxiety. It can create moments of closeness. And I think we're wired to crave it. And when it's genuine, it reminds us that we actually do matter. But as often, affection can also have a shadow side. It can carry this shadow side as well. Sometimes it is real connection, and other times it's a mask. And there are moments when what looks like tenderness is really actually just avoidance. And so we give affection not to deepen intimacy, but more so to sidestep it. And so we offer comfort without vulnerability and gestures without truth, perhaps. And affection becomes like a performance or a way to keep relationships smooth while keeping ourselves hidden. And the difference, I think, really comes down to presence. See, genuine affection grows out of being fully known. It flows from honesty, from showing up with strength and weakness as well, and then expressing all that through touch or words. Whereas avoidant affection, on the other hand, it skips the honesty part. It tries to substitute gestures for truth, and it offers the appearance of intimacy without the risk. Now, I've lived this tension myself. There have been times that I thought I was building closeness by offering affection, when in reality, I think I was just avoiding the harder conversations that needed to be had. So instead of admitting fear or anger or disappointment, I'd basically just give a reassuring sort of a smile or a quick touch and call that love, right? But what I was really doing though, I was really hiding. I wasn't actually letting myself be known, and the result wasn't really intimacy. It was distance that was dressed up more like warmth. And I think young men especially need to understand this distinction. See, we live in this culture where we're often taught to measure love by performance, to do the right things, to say the right things, to keep the peace, and affection just becomes another performance on this checklist. But real intimacy cannot grow in performance, I think. It requires courage, it requires truth. And without these, affection is just decoration. Now, integrity refuses to let affection become avoidance. It insists that our gestures really line up, if you will, with our reality. So if I put a hand on your shoulder, it should mean something true. If I say I love you, it should really be coming from a place of honesty and not a desire to escape conflict. See, affection that's rooted in integrity becomes powerful because it really carries the weight of truth. Whereas affection without truth is more hollow. It may soothe in the moment, but it will not sustain a relationship. Now, the challenge is that avoidance often feels easier, right? Affection smooths things over. It prevents arguments. It looks loving on the surface. But avoidance is always temporary. The truth is, like, there are truths that really go unspoken, but they will eventually surface in resentment, in distance, and in breakdowns. And an affection that doesn't really let you be known is not intimacy. It's more like illusion, and illusions always collapse. See, avoidance is tricky because it wears the mask of care. See, a hug can look like comfort, but sometimes it's really a way of saying, let's not talk about what's really wrong here, right? A compliment can feel like affirmation, but sometimes it's really a way of distracting from deeper issues. And even a smile can be loaded, not with presence, but with an attempt to cover silence. And this is why affection, I would say, without truth is quite dangerous. It doesn't resolve what needs to be faced. It just simply glosses over it. And it may work in the moment, but it leaves cracks in the foundation. And over time, these cracks begin to widen and the relationship begins to feel shallow. And you may still share the gestures of care, but they don't carry that weight. They don't anchor you. They, they don't anchor you because deeper honesty is really missing. For young men, this temptation to substitute affection for intimacy is real, I'd say. See, many of us, we're taught that our role is to keep the peace in relationships and to be steady and agreeable and reassuring. And affection becomes just another tool, right, for avoiding conflict. So instead of saying, this hurt me, or I'm scared, or such, we just put on a smile and offer comfort and call that love. But that's not love, that's fear. And fear always robs intimacy. See, I've made this mistake myself. I've hidden behind that affectionate presentation of words when I should have really spoken about the harder truths. I've used warmth to cover what I really didn't have the courage to face. And over time, the result was the same, and that was just disconnection. Because while the other person may have felt cared for in that moment, they didn't really know me though. They only knew the version of me that I was performing for them in that moment. See, integrity calls us to stop hiding. It challenges us to align affection with reality. And true affection doesn't really replace honesty. It actually carries it. It communicates care in a way that reinforces truth, not avoids it. And this is the kind of affection that builds intimacy, I would say. It doesn't just look good on the surface. It actually creates depth underneath, I would say. Intimacy, I think, is built on courage. Courage to be known, courage to speak, courage to risk without this courage, affection really becomes a substitute for honesty. Whereas with courage, I think affection becomes this expression of honesty. And the difference here is everything. One will create an illusion, whereas the other one will actually create connection. And the reality is, avoidance never holds. See, the conversations we don't have will eventually come back to us. And the truths that we bury will eventually rise. And when they do, the affection that tried to cover them is revealed as hollow. But when affection flows from integrity, it becomes an anchor. It says, I'm with you, and I'm real with you. This is, I think, what makes intimacy last. One of the clearest signs that affection has become avoidance, I think, is when it consistently replaces difficult conversations. So you fight with someone who's close to you, perhaps. But instead of sitting down and working through the tension with them, you just hug, you smile, and maybe crack a joke. And on the surface, everything looks fine, but meanwhile, underneath, nothing has been resolved. See, affection becomes the bandage, if you will, that we slap over wounds, when what we actually need is deep surgery. Now, this pattern is so common in relationships where peace is prized above truth. And so we fear that honesty will bring conflicts. And so we over-rely on affection to hold things together. But peace without honesty is not peace. It's like a fragile kind of a truce. And truce is not intimacy. Truce is just avoidance that's dressed up as stability. Young men, I think we are so especially vulnerable to this pattern because of the cultural scripts that we've inherited. Many of us, we were raised to believe that love is something that we earn by keeping others happy, right? And so we use affection as a form of currency, a way to buy approval or to avoid rejection or to maintain closeness without ever having to risk being fully seen. But a closeness that's built on performance is not real closeness, though, is it? I would say that's survival. See, I know this because I've done it. I've learned, well, there were times when I really leaned on affection to smooth things over because I was scared to name things. I thought I was protecting that relationship, but in reality, I was really just starving it. Because intimacy does not grow in silence. It grows in honesty. And the longer I was avoiding honesty, the more shallow that relationship became. No matter how many hugs I offered or smiles or warm words that I I proffered. See, integrity demands a different way. It insists that affection cannot be used as a substitute for truth. See, real affection it's an overflow, if you will, of honesty, not a replacement for it. Integrity it calls us to show up fully and to let our love be paired with presence, or our care to be paired with courage. Otherwise, what we're calling affection is really just a mask. When affection, though, is authentic, it deepens trust. It reinforces what was already spoken honestly. It says, I care about you, and here's a tangible way that you can feel it. But when affection is used to avoid, it weakens trust, and in essence, it says, I'll give you a gesture so I don't have to give you myself. And over time, people around us will feel that difference. They may not be able to articulate it, but they'll sense the hollowness. And this is why I would say intimacy requires both affection and honesty. See, one without the other is incomplete. Honesty without affection feels harsh, right? And affection without honesty just feels empty. But together, they create this kind of a love that is both safe and real. And that is the love, I think, that we must practice if we're going to build our lives with integrity and intimacy. Affection is meant to be a gift. It's the warmth that makes love tangible, or the touch that really makes care undeniable. The small gestures that, in essence, remind us that we're not alone. But affection was never meant to replace honesty, was it? When it becomes this shield against truth, it stops being love, and now it starts being more like avoidance. And the tragedy is that avoidance feels safe in the short term. It keeps conflict at bay, maybe. It maintains the appearance of harmony. But in the long run, it robs us of intimacy, because intimacy does not come from gestures alone. It actually comes from the courage to be known. And without that, affection becomes hollow. It soothes without healing. It comforts without connecting. And for young men especially, this distinction, I would say, is so critical. See, we live in this culture where we're rewarded for our performance, and we punish vulnerability. And it's tempting to believe that as long as we do the right things and maybe offer enough affection, that our relationships will thrive. But relationships built on gestures alone cannot last. They actually crack under the pressure, because the foundation of truth is missing at the core. See, at Uber Ventures, this is especially why I emphasize the union of integrity and intimacy. Integrity means that my affection is lining up with my reality. And intimacy means that my gestures are paired with truth. And together, those two ensure that the love that I'm giving is not a mask, but a mirror of who I really am. And without integrity, affection becomes avoidance. But with integrity, affection actually becomes connection. And here's where today's theme is pointing us forward. See, affection without honesty, or gentleness without courage, right? Or service without presence, like all of these contrasts are pieces of this larger pattern. And they're going to show us how fear disguises itself as a virtue. See, soon I'll be unpacking this through the 764 movements, this framework that I want to explore, to recognize these patterns and reclaim what wholeness could be, and presence and truth. But in the meantime, would you ask yourself, when I show affection, am I being known or am I hiding? Am I loving with honesty, or am I soothing with avoidance? The answer here matters, because love that doesn't let you be known isn't love at all. It's a mask. And masks never create intimacy. Presence is what creates intimacy. Honesty, integrity. So let's choose affection that actually tells the truth. Let's choose gestures that flow from presence and not from fear. Because only then can love be what it was really meant to be. And that's this place where we are not just comforted, but where we're also truly known. Thanks for listening this far, my dear listener. I'd love to hear again down in the comments below how this episode landed with you. I'll see you in the next episode.